Hey guys, we're back here on our binding. The last video seemed like it was blown out a little bit because of the light. I moved the camera, but you know, it was where it had to be because I needed to use the bandsaw, which is actually what the tripod's set up on. So, you know, small shops. Anyway, we're going to get down to it. We're going to bend this binding up. So here you can see that notch, which actually it's upside down. So here's my notch. To kind of follow along how it's got this German carve here, so that'll drop right into place there. Well, in theory, we want it to drop right into place. But we're going to go ahead and use the heat gun here and get it kind of going. Again, this is kind of a pain to work with, only because, well, mostly because, you know, you've got 5-6 feet of plastic hanging off the end of it here, and it kind of wants to do its own thing. It's like trying to keep a string straight, I guess is a good way to kind of put it. But as you can see, we're kind of moving this back and forth, sort of rotating it as we go. If you watch it, you can kind of see the binding sort of flap in the wind and curl a little bit. It's starting to get nice and soft there. You also notice we're not moving too far into past the thicker section. Now a lot of the reason for that is because it will actually deflect and deform the binding a little bit under its own weight. If we get into this thinner section where we've kind of reduced it, it actually might droop this way under its own weight. We don't want that to happen because while we can heat it and, you know, reform it and things like that, kind of work with it and manipulate it, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get it back out of there, because this stuff, while you get it nice and warm and flexible, you don't have much time before it starts to set up and kind of move back into the shape that it wants to be. Also, this is real hot, so watch your fingers. It's not real pleasant on the hands, to say the least. So, we kind of is prepped a little bit here. And we've got it pretty close to the spot we want it to be. So what we're going to do now is just take this one clamp here, and that's going to kind of hold it in place for the most part. Now, you can see here we're not quite all the way bent how we want it, but here we look nice. So what we're going to do now is kind of continue working this now that we've got it sort of held in place. Before this, because I mean this is already back to rigid. I mean, you saw how flexible it was prior to the heat gun. So now we're going to come back and try to like just kind of work this a little bit before it got too cool, and reheat it just enough so that we can kind of reflex that. Now you notice I'm also moving it back around here. I know right here is where we want to work it, but the problem is if this stays stiff and we try to bend this around, this will actually pull against the other section and cause it to deform on the opposite end. This stuff's so hot. Yeah, you got to really be prepared to kind of like overheat your thumbs and fingers here. You know, it's definitely warm, to say the least, working with this stuff. So again, we've got that kind of in place, and we'll go ahead and throw another small clamp on it to kind of keep it set where we want it. Little tape here. and this piece is kind of formed. Now that's going to start to cool off. We'll switch this to cool down mode for a second, and I'll kind of show you guys a few more things here as we start getting prepped a little further along. So we've got a nice flat straight section here. So what we will do there is go ahead and tape off our binding some. As we come up and approach that curve, because we will be reheating this again and starting to wrap this binding around. But while we've got it clamped in place here, because we actually end up with about an extra foot or so of binding that will go on the guitar, but in a different section, I'm going to go ahead and sort of kind of work this along this edge, keeping it sort of pinched and clamped along as I go, so I don't lose too much. And cut myself a little extra here too. I'm gonna get, so you see we've got almost 2 feet of extra binding here before we make it to this curve. Now that's a really tight curve here. We're not going to fold this 090 around there. It's just a pain in the butt. What we're actually going to do is we'll put a piece here and a piece in here, and then we'll glue these 2 edges together, or rather melt it. I like to use acetone and a little kind of squeeze bottle here with a tiny, almost syringe-like tip. That lets me kind of get a lot of control, so I don't have the acetone going everywhere. And what this acetone does is it actually, I can kind of show you a little bit on a quick sort of demo here. So take our chisel, and we'll kind of cut a square edge on there. Now these are just 2 random pieces of, binding, but this acetone, the way it works is it actually will melt this ABS. So you put a little bit on your pieces there, and then as they go, so as you can see there, we just fix that to a T. Now the acetone's still wet here. There's a bit of a droplet there, so you let that sit for a bit, but that'll make a permanent bond, and you've kind of just chemically melted itself. You broke it down to where it turned to a goop and then reconstituted itself as a solid. So these 2 are, plastic welded, I guess would be a good way to put that, together now. So they're permanent. Now, as long as you've got a clean, nice joint, which obviously these are little scrap pieces with some gunk there, but if it's a clean, nice joint there, you can, you're just melting all the same color back in. So as long as you've got a nice joint with no gaps, you can make it look basically seamless. So as we come around this corner, rather than trying to fight this all the way, making that super tight bend, we're going to just miter it essentially and then glue it with the acetone. And the acetone is actually the same thing that we glue in our bindings with here. We melt that in and then keep it we put the tape on it, and the tape acts like a clamp, holds it in place while it sets up. There's a lot of different techniques for doing this. I use acetone with the ABS. Some other bindings are PVC and things like that, and you have to use a different type of glue, like a rubber cement, for instance, works well with that stuff. Yeah, I've done it a handful of ways and settled on acetone with ABS being the ticket there. So yeah, I'll get back to it, and you guys don't want to watch me bend the rest of this with a heat gun, I feel like. So I'll bring it back in the next video. Thanks, guys.